Hey, it's me again, Wasabi, and today's comparison video is to help anyone deciding between the Lamzu Inca and the Zowie ZA13-DW. Because the Lamzu Inca has pretty much the same shape and size, and so perhaps picking out the differences with my experience between the two and sharing a bit about how I feel about them can help you figure out which one will suit you best. Or perhaps help you realize that neither of these mice are your cup of tea. Let's start with the basics. Both these mice have a right-handed symmetrical shape, so side buttons on the left. Lamzu Inca weighs 40 grams and is available for a price of $120, while the ZA13-DW on the other hand weighs 65 grams and is priced at about $150, $30 difference between the two. Design: the Lamzu Inca it looks a little different with the design details, but they pretty much took the shape and concept from Zowie. I'm not particularly fond of the design of either mice, but the Lamzu Inca looks very plain and it's got sort of a budget mouse kind of vibe to it. Now, having both next to each other, it really makes me appreciate the fine details of the ZA13 a lot more though. On the bottom, the Lamzu Inca design is rather plain, and keep in mind that the Lamzu Inca is $30 less than the ZA13-DW. There is a bit of detail, but for a Lamzu mouse, this really doesn't feel special like how Lamzu mice usually do, because they are usually very creative and they got interesting cutout designs on the bottom. For the ZA13 on the bottom, it's packed with lots of stuff, also because it's a driverless mouse, so you got more buttons to configure your settings. Now about the weight, the official weight of the Lamzu Inca is 40 grams without any mouse skates. Of course, you will need to put skates on the mouse, which brings it up to 42 grams. And that makes it 23 grams lighter than the ZA13-DW at 65 grams. Now 23 grams is a big difference that you can feel between two mice, and whether or not a lighter weight is good depends on your preference. The ZA13-DW at 65 grams to me feels like it's got a better balance between stability and feeling agile on the pad, whereas the Lamzu Inca, the lighter 40 gram design makes me feel less stable in comparison for a shape like this, where I felt like I needed more precise handling to get the same level of control. The Inca is a mouse that took me a much longer time to get used to compared to any other mouse I've used before, which is not a very good thing to say. The weight of the ZA13-DW to me makes it feel much more stable with the flicks and easier to manage, and if you didn't know, this shape is designed for flicking. The shape is pretty much the same, but in my hand, or maybe because it's the case of the units that I have, the Inca feels ever so slightly more relaxed on the sides and makes it just a hair bit more comfortable, but it is so minor that I don't think many people would notice unless you've been using the ZA13 for a while now. But that said, when I say comfortable, take it with a grain of salt, because the shape that these mice share is generally not a shape that I find comfortable using for an entire day of work and gaming, but it is a shape that is freaking supportive for a claw and aggressive claw grip, and flicking feels great. Both mice have great build quality for their respective weight, but for the price, the ZA13-DW just feels way more premium. The coating, its buttons, the scroll wheel feels like it's got better quality materials, and for the price of the Lamzu Inca, even though it's $30 cheaper than the ZA13, I can't say that you are getting more value for the money on the topic of build quality and materials, and while the quality isn't terrible, it just feels rather average for the price. A coating, both mice have coatings that deliver excellent grip for gaming. The coating on the Lamzu Inca feels cheaper, but it is a little more grippy than the ZA13 to me. And both these mice are black, so sweat marks and smudges will be visible. If you are going for the Lamzu Inca, they have a white version, and that's a color I would recommend if a sweaty looking mouse bothers you. And for the ZA13-DW, unfortunately, it's only the black colorway available for now. Switches, the Lamzu Inca has Omron optical switches, while the ZA13-DW has Huano transparent blue shell pink dot mechanical switches. And between the two, I prefer the mechanical switches of the ZA13-DW. However, this is not to say that the Omron opticals of the Lamzu Inca are bad though. In the Lamzu Inca that I have, the clicks feel much heavier than most Omron optical switches I've experienced before, and they are heavier than the clicks on the ZA13-DW. Clicking the ZA13 is not particularly light, but still lighter than the Inca, so the ZA13 is a lot easier to spam click if that is something that you do often. Side buttons, the ones on the Lamzu Inca are a bit smaller. I'm someone who uses side buttons very often, especially for gaming, and I appreciate the shape and size of the side buttons on the ZA13-DW a lot more than Lamzu Inca. On the ZA13-DW, clicking the side buttons is quieter and lighter to press as well, while the ones on the Inca need a bit more force and are rather loud and hollow sounding, which to me doesn't feel very enjoyable and sounds cheap, especially for a mouse of its price. Now about the scroll wheel of the Lamzu Inca, it is very stiff and dry, which to me is rather odd because it's not the usual experience that I have with Lamzu mice. But perhaps they had a change or it's just a bad batch of TTC encoders. To me, I did not feel good using this for gaming or productivity, and you need a fair amount of pressure to click down on the wheel. The scroll wheel on the ZA13-DW on the other hand, scrolling is light, yet the notches are very distinct, which to me is an excellent combination for gaming, and clicking on the scroll wheel requires a moderate amount of pressure. But the one thing that the scroll wheel on the Inca does better than the ZA13-DW is that it does not sound like ass. The tech differences, they both have the same sensor and lift-off distance, but the Lamzu Inca offers a higher wireless polling rate and a shorter battery life compared to the ZA13-DW, which has a longer battery life but a lower wireless polling rate of 4000 Hz maximum. I think 4000 Hz is plenty enough, but of course if you feel that you want a mouse that can do 8000, then for sure go for the Lamzu Inca. And one attractive feature for me is the wireless charging that the ZA13-DW has. The enhanced receiver doubles up as a charging dock, so if you are using this mouse mostly at home, which I imagine most people do, being able to just place the mouse on the receiver to charge within the day or overnight is a small but convenient feature that I enjoy very much. Alright, recommendations. If you're after a lightweight experience and the highest polling rates, Lamzu Inca would be the one to go for. It's got a super lightweight 40-gram design, which is fantastic if you want a nimble feeling mouse. And if the battery life isn't your main concern and you don't mind the lighter build, the Inca is a decent choice, especially with a lower price tag at $120. On the other hand, if you're more into a balanced experience with a premium build, the Zowie ZA13-DW is great. With its 65-gram weight, it offers a more stable, controlled feel, especially for flicking. But this does not apply to all my shapes though. It's just this shape that I felt a heavier weight feels much better. It's got a longer battery life, a better build quality, and the convenience of a wireless charging dock. And these are things that makes the mouse seem like a good deal for $30 more. And so if you prefer a more refined and durable feeling mouse, because you know Zowie's mice are built like a tank, and you don't mind spending a little more, the ZA13-DW is definitely the way to go. However, if you need to remap your mouse buttons or do very fine adjustments to your DPI, you can only do that with the Lamzu Inca because this works with a web-based software. So if those are things that are very important to you, then you should avoid Zowie's mice in general. Now, which one do I prefer and why? I prefer the ZA13-DW because I enjoy the quality and convenience features, which I like a lot. The driverless operation makes it very convenient to quickly adjust my settings when I want to. To me, it's the experience of the main buttons, the side buttons, the scroll wheel, and the build quality is just much nicer to me, and with these experiences, I find the ZA13 to be worth the extra $30. This is not a mouse that I would have as my main though, because it's not exactly comfortable to use an entire day. And just keep in mind that for both of these mice, they are a small size. For the Lamzu Inca, it's the only size for now, and for Zowie, based on their past releases, the ZA shape should have a medium and large option coming soon, which are the ZA12 and ZA11-DW respectively. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful in any way, please leave a like and subscribe to support my channel, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.